Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear viewers, to the show, Think About It. Today, I'd like to start off by asking some questions. How common is it for someone to say that men are strong? That men express themselves physically? That men take things head on? How common is it for people to say that men have egos, which come in the way of quite a lot of their transactions and daily dealings? How common is it for people to say that men are proud, that means they have pride, and are arrogant? Now, these assumptions that I'm telling you that people might indeed have come from thousands of years. People have been saying this, people have been talking about this, you've seen people who've written books about this, you've seen psychologists, psychiatrists, you've seen people in the international business community, you've seen it in history. Men are strong, men have egos, men are physical. And if you take a flip to the opposite gender, how common is it for people to say that women are sensitive? How common is it for people to say that women are emotional? That they're very hypothetical. They're a lot of the time in their thoughts. How common is it for people to say that? How many women would agree that they are emotional or too emotional? How many would agree that they think too much? How many would agree that they're sensitive? Same question for the men. How many men today would agree that they are physical? That they're supposed to be strong, or that they are strong, or that they have egos that infiltrate and interrupt their dealings and cloud their judgment? How many men would agree that they are arrogant? The questions that are posed here today are questions that come from the title of the show: Stress and Perception. Now, these are just some of the surface issues that I've spoken about. Generalizations that people might make at times. Are they valid? There's no way to really know. But are they something that's perceived? Quite commonly. Quite a lot of people feel this way. I don't know why. We don't know if researches have taken place to prove it. And even if researches have taken place and they have proven them, there are researches that state the opposite as well. But we talk about the individual person. Every single time people talk, educators speak. I myself am a teacher. When we talk and when we want to enlighten minds, or when we're having a discussion with students, you're having a discussion at your home, with your spouses, your brothers and sisters, your grandparents, your parents, when you're sitting in a gathering and you're talking to friends and family, at that moment, we all look at each other as individuals, I believe. But even then, we've come up with stereotypical things that might make us prejudge other people. Is it all right to prejudge other people? Is it all right to have these perceptions? Men are strong, women are emotional, men are egotistic, women are sensitive. Is it all right to make these statements? I'm pretty sure the logical answer is no. We shouldn't be making these statements. But are these statements actually feelings that people possess? To track them down, we actually need to look into society itself. We need to look at the psychology of how people act, that means behavioral, how people think, their subconsciouses go around, that's psychoanalysis. And we need to combine the two as well, which is cognitive. And before I go further on, I want to give a shout out to my students from grade 11 of Sefa and Marwa Islamic School, because they're the ones who gave me the idea for this show. So thank you very much. When it comes down to it, we take a look at the word stress. It doesn't go alone. Stress is something that is sometimes not looked at with much detail or focus. And when I say this, I mean people don't look at the root cause. They look at the product, they say that they're stressed out, but they don't go to the root of why the stress exists. It could be multiple things that have accumulated. And now an individual's elastic limit, that means the limit that we can withstand and withhold, has crossed. And so they break point. And when they break, they might very well end up losing their sanity and say that they're stressed out. To come to stress and to understand it, there was a survey that was done in September 2019. And that survey showed that stress that affects health, that means people fall into depression, people get irritated, people get into arguments, people lose their patience, all of these different things that actually affect us physically, our health, our well-being. In 2019, a survey stated that approximately 30, 40 years ago and prior to that, that level of stress would hit somebody when they were 14 years old. Prior to that, it was negligible. Negligible means that it didn't occur much. There were rare cases where kids below the age of 14 would have stress that would affect their health. Maybe that's why when our older generation, our parents, uncles, people who you meet at a subway or you talk to might say that, oh, our generation was very this and your generation is very much that. But is it true that today's generation, what they're facing, whether you call them millennials, whether you call them Generation Z, are they a product of stress? Because that same survey in 2019 in September showed that nowadays, kids as young as age 4 years old, can show signs and have actual stress that affects their health. From 14 to 4, that's a 10-year drop. Do you actually think a 4-year-old should be dealing with stress? Why? It doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, statistics show that it's true. And for that, we need to take a look at perceptions. So when we take a look at perceptions, we have to understand where they were created. Let's go to the root. The root causes of perceptions are cultural backgrounds. So basically, even if you live in a country that has a lot of diversity, such as Canada, it's great to have diversity. It's absolutely wonderful. But is all that diversity actually moving towards something healthy? Something healthy means integrating. That means someone who has a background from Asia, Africa, Europe, Australia, or any other continent, when they're coming together, are they integrating with one another? Are they getting to know each other? Are they understanding one another? Are they coming and meeting each other on a common ground that they are now a part of a new country or a new internationally diverse area, and they have to walk forward with certain values? Nobody in any means blames, any person in the right mind that is, would blame religion, ethnicity, or whatever, other facets people look at. But unfortunately, background doesn't mean ethnicity. Background doesn't mean faith. Background doesn't even mean where you came from. Background means the thoughts that you grew up with, your upbringing. That's what background means. So when you were growing up, now I've done several shows in the past talking about stereotyping, talking about hatred in the world, talking about expenses, whether it be educational, businesses, and all those different things. When you have a child at home, a child learns off their parents, obviously, or older siblings, which is absolutely natural. They learn off of people in their surrounding. When they learn off the people in their surrounding, sometimes they question why, and sometimes they accept it as a doctrine, a truth that is irrefutable, that they can't think against. So let's say a parent sitting at home one day, news comes on, and they see a crime scene happening. The news is covering a live crime scene. Someone, a criminal, is performing a crime. And one of the parents blames the ethnicity of the person, says, these people, they do this all the time. All right, not the wisest thing to say, but that child has heard this and has indoctrinated it. So when that child goes to school, and it so happens that there's a child in the class from that ethnicity, the one that their father pointed out in the news and belittled, that child is going to measure that person from that ethnicity with their father's remark. And when you measure somebody in that aspect, you've done the biggest crime, worse than probably the crime that was being committed. Because what you've done is you've just brought up, given knowledge, past knowledge, not right knowledge, not right at all in any means, but you've actually passed knowledge down to a child that is going to shape his or her future negatively. How often do you think about what you say when you're in your surrounding? How often do you think about what you're acting or what your mannerisms are in your surrounding? How many people can be affected by it? This goes for siblings as well. It's not just parents, it's not grandparents alone. It's every single member of society. When you talk, someone will take away something from you. Even if they're educated, they'll look at you and say, this is a less educated person. This is a person who hasn't received the proper education and is making such a remark. For those people whose brains are like sponges, they're going to take your information and they're going to believe it. So if you make fun of an ethnicity, you've just given a child the green light, a license to go about in their life, make fun of, be scared of, confront, have fights with someone of another ethnicity based on your comment. Background is an issue. Background is the way you think. Background also falls under values. Not religious values, but cultural values. Culture, not always a bad thing, of course. Culture is great. Culture is wonderful. But within culture, sometimes there's some mannerisms and some things that are taught to children as they're growing up. These things sometimes are quite strict and hard. Sometimes they're very lenient and very open. Let's say, I'm going to give you an example right now. This is the same example I gave my students this morning and yesterday. If you grow up in a household where the vice of smoking is seen as a crime, it's seen as something that only bad people do, it's frowned upon. In fact, if you talk about somebody smoking, someone in the household, some elder person says that, someone who smokes must also do this, 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 and this, and this, and that. And they're very bad, and stay away from them. For this person, this child who has learned this piece of information, who has received it, when they go out someday with their family, maybe their mother or father are driving them to a store, maybe they're going to go some groceries, maybe they're going to a store for some service, maybe they're going to the bank. And they park their car and they come out of the car. When they come out of the car, someone within the parking lot or the vicinity of the parking lot, let's say, is smoking. That child, how will that child look towards that person? Obviously, because it was a crime in their eyes, that person, in the child's eyes, is a criminal, is someone the child should stay away from. I'm not saying it's good. Secondhand smoking is really bad. You shouldn't go and make friends with people who smoke all the time. At least don't stand next to them, all right? But does it entail that the person has a bad character? Does it entail that the person is a wrongdoer? And does that justify you thinking of them as a criminal? Let's take the same scenario, the same vice, and put it in another household. Let's say the father in that household smokes himself. Let's say smoking isn't really seen as something big or good. I mean, of course, with modern day awareness, we know smoking is not good for your health. Passive smoking is also quite bad, in fact, worse. And you don't want to get into that. It's not good. But yes, some people or members of your family smoke. Your father, after you've had your meal or whatever it is, walks outside, comes back in. Someday you're coming home from school, your father, your brother, whoever it is standing on the porch, they're having a cigarette, they're like, hey, how's school, whatever. You don't really give it that attention. You don't talk about it that much. For this person, if we put them in the same scenario where they go out with their family, they're in their parking lot, whatever was their business, and they wanted to attend to it, and this person comes out, this child comes out of the car and sees someone within the parking lot smoking, would they feel that that person is a criminal? If your answer was no, you're right. For them, it's just another habit. Not a good one, something that you should refrain from, but that person is not a criminal. This is a very surfaced example that I'm giving you. You can go and delve deeper into this, but you will see some ridiculous things. So that's culture and background. Background, again, does not mean, let me repeat this another time, it does not mean religion, it does not mean ethnicity, it does not mean where you came from. Background is basically the thinking you developed as a child and today is indoctrined and actually forces you. When I say force you, I mean it is something that was put inside your head to such an extent that today it actually dictates how you feel or what you will do or what you will say when you're met with a certain circumstance. The second, background is done. The second point is profession. People from different professions think differently. Obviously, you go to college or university or you do training, you get a certification, you get a diploma. You go and you train yourself to do a certain job or you want to get into a certain scope, whether it be something to do with engineering, construction, becoming a lawyer, legal studies basically, getting into science, becoming a doctor, an MD who wants to deal with medical sciences, going into academics, you want to learn about a subject, literature, mathematics, chemistry, you want to dive deep into that. So you could be an educator, you could be a person who's a businessman, you could be a person who's a lawyer, you could be a person who's a doctor, you could be a person from any walk of life. The type of training you got and the type of, let's say skill that you attained. Attained means you already had something in you, but you attained it and you actually helped it grow and focus and become something bigger. So you could do a job well. You have it with you. You have your certificate, you have everything. Now you go to work. Obviously, when you were doing your training, you were given some principles. You were given some ways of dealing with situations. Wonderful. When you start working, you see how much of your studies were relevant to your work, how much weren't. But on the job, you will learn how to do quite a few things. When you learn how to do those things, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to develop a character or personality because of your profession. You're going to learn how to deal with people through the eyes of a businessman, through the eyes of an educator, through the eyes of a doctor, through the eyes of a lawyer, based on your profession. And that's how you're going to see everything around you. So what happens is, why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? It's not a problem in your profession. It's a problem in integration in society, the reason why stress exists. You could be sitting in a gathering where you have people of different professions. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. So when I'm sitting down in a gathering and people are talking to me and they ask me, why are differences made? What's the biggest issue in this world? And I say, arrogance and pride is the biggest issue, for example. And they ask me, how do you say that? Why is arrogance there? What is the root of arrogance and pride? Is that the reason people went to war in the past? Is that the reason kingdoms fell? Is that the reason kingdoms rose as well? And if I tell them, as an educator, my point of view is language. Language is a pretty big thing. So language, not just a language itself, but based on the location, the locality of where you are and the populace that speaks that language. Let's say English in the UK is different from English in the USA and in Canada and in South Africa and in Australia and in India and in Pakistan and in Zimbabwe, a lot of other countries. Why? Because culture takes a toll on language. But when you know a language, it's not that you just speak that language. If you know how to speak English, great. But if you add an accent to it, if you add the culture of the language to it, you are recognized as a person who's from a particular place, a particular location. And that defines you. It's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing either. But what happens is that when you're sitting down and you make this statement that it's because of language, a person who's a businessman or a person of a different profession can very easily say, oh no, man, a lot of languages are spoken, your point is mute. When they do that, when they have responded to your opinion in such a manner, all of a sudden, your stress level increases. Why? This could have been an educator who said this could have been a doctor who said this could have been a lawyer who said this. But your stress level rises because all of a sudden, your opinion or your view isn't accepted. Acceptance doesn't mean it's agreed upon. Acceptance means that it's taken into the circle of society. All of a sudden, your point is brushed off. When your point is brushed off and you feel that your point hasn't been accepted, you feel as though you haven't been accepted. And when you feel as though you haven't been accepted, all of a sudden humans have a tendency and a need for being social, for being a part of groups. There's nothing that can be taken away from us. That is why we communicate. That is why we know languages. That is why we have family, friends, social circles. We have a work circle that we're with. We have a social circle that we're with. We have a family circle that we're with. We have private lives, personal lives. We have business lives. We have corporate lives. We have work lives. All of those are valid where they are. And they're actually quite strong where they are because they're required for our sanctity and our sanity. But if in one area your opinion isn't accepted, laughed on, degraded, or belittled, all of a sudden you feel as though you've been belittled. And this might make you apprehensive when you want to share a point or an opinion in the future. If that does happen, then that means you're a victim of stress. The third point is peer pressure. Mostly you could see it within children, especially kids who are in adolescence. So in your early teenage years up to your late teenage years. Alhamdulillah, it's not the case with everybody, but it's definitely something that does exist. So when you bring that on, peer pressure is basically being forced to do something because your friends, your colleagues, your co-workers, whatever the environment might be, is doing it too, or has challenged you to do so. This is where probably people say that the male species, men, have egos, are more physical. The truth of it could be anything. These are all just thoughts, opinions. Studies and researches might have happened, but nothing has come up with a definite answer. It's all very much a gray area because it has a variety of opinions. So peer pressure is something that can cause someone to do something very drastic. It can also cause people to brush off peer pressure. I'm not getting into it. For those people who are not into peer pressure, hats off to you, mashallah. You have a strong personality, never do it. Never give in. Do your own thing, live your life, that's great. But at the same time, those people who do give in to peer pressure might end up making mistakes, might end up doing something that might be a blunder, and that might not have very good repercussions or consequences. Speaking of repercussions and consequences, let's look at the consequences. I've given you 3 points that add on to perceptions, which might as well, according to research that we have, a plethora of research, all the way from the 1800s up till now, all right? And even before that, these are things that were said to men and women. We come to consequences of perceptions, which lead to stress, and then outcomes. So what are the consequences of stress exactly? Obviously, it changes your attitude. If you are a stressed individual, you cannot calmly digest information. If you've just been stressed out because of something, your stress is going to release somewhere. Whether it be you not listening to someone, whether it be you getting irritated very quickly and arguing with someone, whether it be you not willing to even give in or give your opinion to something, whether it be you not sitting on the same table at dinner with other people because you have an issue. Stress is something that dictates your behavior. Make no mistake. And why did it occur? Because of someone's perception of something that they heard when they were a child and now is indoctrined. So attitude is one thing. The next would be crime. Did you know 98% of crimes that are done or committed in this world are done by people who are facing health issues due to stress? Research it, Google it, and find out. I don't remember exactly what research it was, but I remember reading it and I was quite shocked as well. So health is the main factor at the end of the day. And stress, compounding it, makes people do sometimes crazy things. Is this healthy? Of course not. Is this right? No. Does this exist? Unfortunately. So attitude is one point. The second one was crime. And the third is depression. You might have seen it, you might have heard it. I'm sure, dear viewers, you've already seen different statistics. You've heard people talking about it in different gatherings. You probably had your eyes run through it or skim through it on the internet as well. Depression is something that is real. And it's kicking in day by day. It is something that causes people to seclude themselves. It is something that has caused famous people. SubhanAllah, take a look at Bollywood, for example. We heard there was an actor who committed suicide. Whether it was suicide or not, there's investigation going on. But what caused that person to that breaking point? The person was stressed out. Whether it be because of his peers around him, whether it be a difficulty of life that's taking place, but something that was definitely not positive. People are committing crimes nowadays. If you sit them down and you ask them, why was the crime committed? All of them usually have a backstory of how twisted or how negative their upbringing was. So it stands quite clear that perception, your background, your mind, your thinking caused you to do something, caused you to become something big. But here's the thing, as Muslims, we have to refer to our religion for a variety of purposes. It's not just looking at the world, facing the world, going through the world, forgetting about your religion. Religion goes hand in hand. Islam, subhanAllah, is such a beautiful religion which people don't understand. Again, have a perception. Since they were young, they were told that these people are bad based on no evidence, no anecdotal things, nothing except word of mouth because they were afraid of something that was different. And today you have grown-up people from Generation Z, the millennials, saying the most absurd things about our religion because they're not educated. Simple as that. They're not educated. This perception they have built has also caused them stress because some of them genuinely don't know what's happening. And some of them genuinely don't know where to look. It's up to us to help these people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our beautiful religion has put down many lessons for us to take away from, to understand, and to actually practice our lives with. Number one of them is not just remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just performing salah and stuff, but your character. Remember that example I gave you of that parent who might have made a derogatory comment about a certain ethnicity when a crime scene was going on, and that child went and measured their comment with other people around them of the same ethnicity? It's a hadith, a sahih hadith, that a true Muslim is he or she who everyone else is safe from their tongue. Your tongue, your hands, your actions do not cause harm to other people. It's a very big thing. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said, those people who can control their tongue are amongst the best of people. If not the best, amongst them. Yes, we have hadith about that man is very good who is good to his wife. We have other hadith about your responsibilities and priorities towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which have your 5 pillars of Islam, we have the 6 pillars of faith. We do need to understand everything. We do. But we need to take it hand in hand. Do people take it hand in hand today? That's up for you to decide. That's up for you to think about and ponder about. But that is why we refer to our religion again and again. If you're facing stress, a good thing to do is to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never burdens a soul with more than what it can bear. That means regardless of the test you're going through, regardless of the stress that you are receiving, regardless of the noises around you that might be impacting you and your health, just remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know that you can not only survive this, but fly through it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never test you to something that you cannot withstand. It's just for you to open your eyes and see. is just for you to refer back to your religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us human beings, His people, that if you remember me, I'll remember you. Regardless of how many sins you have, regardless of what you think of yourself or what image you have in your head, whether it's a very positive one or a negative one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is waiting for you, just to refer back to Him. Don't take my word for it. I know a lot of people quote different imams and different ulamas and different ustads and different alims in this world. All right, they quote them. We don't know about their aqeedah. We don't know about how they are. I've quoted people as well. And if I've done wrong, I'd like to retract what I've said about alims and imams and people to follow. That's quite simple. But go out and do your research. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَتَفَكِّرُونَ. Do you not think? Do you not see? It's in the Quran. It's in your religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to use our minds. Because if we don't use our minds become succumbed to other people's thinking. Today, we talked about stress and perceptions. Move them away for a second. I'm still talking about stress, but move them away to the examples that I've given you. We have social media that filters our emotions. You go on social media, you can post a picture about you having a great life, you have a very beautiful scenic view in the back, you're at a beach, you're giving thumbs up and making all those signs that kids make nowadays. Great, good for you. You're getting a bunch of likes on it, people are telling you that they miss you, where are you, what are you doing? Awesome. But you're going back to count the likes every now and then. You're going back to see how many people have commented on that post. But you filtered your life. Because now people are trying to measure themselves according to your picture. I don't know if that was your target, but they're measuring themselves according to that. They want to oust it, they want to beat it, or they want to at least equal it in some way. Even if in reality, you're not that much at peace and you are facing stress. Subhanallah. Do you see the dichotomy between that? We're so used to putting filters in our lives. We're so used to the appearance of being happy that we've forgotten how to actually be happy. Suicide is the last part of stress. I gave you an example of an actor who committed suicide. Now, that does get a lot of wind because obviously it's a famous figure. But subhanAllah, the rates of suicide, the statistics that speak today off of research, contemporary researches done by a variety of universities, which show that the rate of suicides are increasing. Why is that so? It's because people are losing themselves in this world, in the dunya. They're measuring themselves up to people who have more, when they should be counting their blessings and looking at people who have less, who are less fortunate. Because that would give you something to be happy about. It would give you something to be content about. If you want to go out and make a difference, if you feel that inshallah you have that personality to do so, then start, volunteer, do something. Get your mind off of that time or that phase or that bubble of getting that stress because someone said something different to what you believe in, or someone denied your opinion, or the fact that you don't feel your life is that special. Because when you start doing that, when you start counting your blessings, you will find out that your life is not just special, but it is so special that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with so much that you're going to start crying and thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We say that we can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough, and that's true. The only thing that we fail to do is we fail to count our blessings. If you study in a private school today, or in a school in general, wherever you are, and you say, oh, the school's not good, I hate this school, I hate the way it is, these teachers are not good, the system is not good. Well, listen up, you're studying in school, not many people have that. Out of 7 billion people in the world, at least 1 billion, that is 1/7 or 1/8, whatever the figure is of the population of the world, do not have access to schools. On that, 2 to 3 million don't have access to proper schools. They're sitting outside on mud, on grass, under trees, trying to get knowledge, which you have the facility and the luxury of getting in some way or form or shape or size. Count your blessings. There's only one advice that I can give you that, inshallah, I hope is effective. And that is, whenever you see somebody say something, whenever somebody denies you your opinion, makes fun of your opinion, or your opinion is belittled or is argued at. Or let's say you have a daily thing going on, you have peer pressure around you, you have a profession that's different from you, someone who's giving you different types of things. Let's say it's a cultural background that is different to yours, or even yours, that you think is a bit strict or a bit weird or doesn't really make sense. Try to look at it in a way that how it affects your personal life, how it affects your behavior, how it affects you as a person, how it affects your work life if you are working, or your student life if you're a student. Is it in fact impacting you in some way which brings change of any form or shape or size? If it does, give it a delayed reaction. Don't give it an immediate one. Think about it for a second. Think about what a person said, and then delay your reaction. Because more often than not, when you delay, I'm not sure if this has happened to you, but it's happened to me quite a few times when you have a debate as well, even if it's healthy, or you're having a conversation with someone, and the conversation ends. About an hour, 2 hours, even a day later or 2 days later, you start thinking that I should have said that too. That's another good point. If that has happened to you, use the delayed response, because in that way, you might end up actually saying something that's valuable, educational, profound even. At the end of the day, stress and perception go together. Why? Because of our thinking. And our thinking has caused us to change the way we do things, has caused us to blame things as well, but we need to stop. Think about it. Thank you very much for tuning in. Inshallah, see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.